All right, this is Merck, Merck Q3 2021 earnings call summary. And the big news is, and I can pronounce the name of any of these drugs, Molnupiravir. I'm going to try anyway. But anyway, this is the big news. This is the oral COVID medication. And the stock prices definitely rose on the back of this. The executives are saying that they think vaccination is the key. They think everyone should get vaccinated, and they think that this particular medicine will be used in conjunction with vaccination. Basically, this oral pill is something that you'll take the minute that you either test positive for COVID or if you think you're coming down with COVID. They, in all of their trials and tests, this thing has reduced both death and hospitalization by more than 50%. And so they say that is good enough. The FDA is going to approve, well, the FDA is having a meeting on the 30th of November 2021 to decide whether or not this thing is going to be approved for use. Currently, they have contracts with, I know, the U.S., Europe, as well as, I believe, Australia and New Zealand, if not both, for these pills as soon as they are approved. And they're currently saying that they see $4 to $5 billion over the next year in sales if they can get this thing approved. They've also contracted with a number of companies over in India to manufacture this drug as well. Basically, they plan on selling this particular drug to countries based on their affordability. So if the country is a bit better off, then they're going to pay more money. And if the country is a poorer country, relatively speaking, they'll pay less money for the drug. And so, this can be a really big thing because we know that even with vaccination, you can still contract COVID. And if you do, there's an oral pill that you can take to not only reduce your chance of death, but also even having to go into the hospital. This particular drug is also effective against all of the different variants of COVID as well. And so if this thing is going to be around with us for a while, I imagine that not only having something to work against the different variants, but also continuing to work and test and build upon this particular drug if more variants come into play. All right, so let's take a look really quick at their pipeline. I don't think I've discussed this before, so I want to go through it now. Typically, with a pharma drug company, all of the drugs go through these phases, right? So phase one is when they first kind of come up with the formula for the drug and they're testing it in the laboratory. A lot of times there will be animal tests done, right? Just to figure out how the drug works, what it does, what it can possibly be used for. And then it goes into phase two. If in fact the drug works well, right, then it goes into phase two, in which they will actually do human studies where they'll get patients with these particular ailments and they will give them these drugs. Typically, some of the patients will receive a placebo, like a sugar pill or something, and the other patients will receive the actual drug. And the idea is to figure out whether or not the actual drug is working or if it's something else, right? So if the patients who receive the drug are better off than the patients who receive the sugar pill, then of course that means that this drug is a good drug, right? And then it moves on to phase three. Now, as you can see here, there's a lot of different drugs in phase two currently. Not all of them will make it out of phase two, but these are the drugs that can potentially turn into billion-dollar medicines, right? And there's 53 of these things, okay? All right, phase 3, same thing. Again, this is human trials usually, and they're again just trying to figure out the effectiveness of the drug as well as the possible side effects. Phase 3 is the last phase before this thing goes to the FDA for approval, and they currently have about 25 of these particular drugs in phase 3. So they have a lot of drugs out there, right? Again, not all of them are going to make it. Some will. The ones that were discussed in the earnings call, though, were Gardasil. And I need to say, too, before we get going, the human health grew 17%, and then the animal side of the drug company grew something like 18%. So we're seeing some really good growth. And then individually, some of these drugs did better than others, right? So Gardasil is one that was discussed quite a bit because they see a lot of potential for this thing to not only do what it's doing currently, but to be used for other things, right? So Gardasil is the vaccination or the vaccine rather for HPV. Also helps against cervical cancer as well. They say that something like only 9% of the world's population is protected against HPV, so they definitely see some potential there. I know personally, when I went back to college in 2008, I think it was, I was told that I had beat the mandatory vaccination for HPV by 1 year. So if I had enrolled in college a year earlier, then I would have had to get the mandatory HPV vaccination. So it's really interesting when you start talking about vaccinations and requirements and mandates and things of that nature. I was never required to get the HPV vaccination, so I never did. Whether or not that'll ever change, who knows? But as of now, if you are a certain age and you're going to school, you definitely have to have a HPV vaccination. It is required. And Gardasil is that vaccine that Merck has for that case. And so, of course, you can see where there's a lot of money there. Keytruda is their current flagship medicine. It is the thing that they hang their hat on, and it is all about cancer. They are doing their best to figure out ways to use Keytruda for all sorts of different cancers. I mean, they're constantly working on seeing if it'll fight this cancer or that cancer. And so they're using it for everything, and that's kind of where they're at there. Vaxnuvance is the one that I was really interested in. This one is just now approved, so they haven't made any money on it yet. But this is a vaccine for pneumonia, and this particular vaccine protects against 15 different strains of pneumonia. There's another drug very similar in name. I think it's pronounced Nuvance, maybe Pneumovance or something. But it is specifically made for children, and so we're talking about pneumonia vaccine for kids. That is pretty amazing. So really interested to see where this goes. I don't know if it'll be mandated or required, but if you are a parent and you're concerned about pneumonia, which can be a very scary disease, the vaccine is there, and so we'll have to see kind of how that all plays out. Another one that was discussed is Wellerig or Wellerig. They're really excited about this one. This one, again, cancer drug, but more specifically, it helps fight against tumors that end up on your spinal cord or near your nervous system, which is a horrible, horrible thing. And this particular drug seems to work really well against those tumors. And again, it's just newly available, so hasn't made a whole lot of money yet. We'll have to see kind of how that plays out, but it is available. Um, the other one, which is an animal medicine that they discussed, fights against fleas and ticks. They were really excited about this one and kind of what the potential can be for some other things there. I do need to discuss that they purchased a company. Well, they didn't. They want to purchase it. They have not gotten government approval yet to purchase this company, but they've already made an offer. The offer was accepted. So as soon as the government says yes, it's okay, you can purchase this company, they will have it. Acceleron is the name. They only have two drugs that I could find. The one that Merck is really interested in is this sotatercept, which is for pulmonary arterial hypertension. It's blood pressure, high blood pressure that affects the lungs and heart, which I thought was really interesting. But it is a rare disease. I don't know if I discussed this, but you know, as a drug company, you want to find diseases that affect a lot of people. As macabre as that may sound, that's where the money is, right? Typically, the rarer the disease, the more expensive the cure, which sucks, but that's kind of the way it works, right? Because if there's not a lot of people with the disease, then not only is there less incentive to create a drug for it, but also, if you only have, let's say 10 people with the disease and you're selling the drug for $5, well, I mean, that doesn't even cover the expense for inventing the thing. You know what I mean? So maybe possibly this is one of those deals where they got this company because they think that there can be a lot of money made on this rare disease. Who knows? I don't know. But the one drug that they do have that has been approved and it is making money, I'm not sure how much, is this Reblozyl to treat anemia. Again, a rare disease. I'm not quite sure exactly, what kind of money is being made on it, but that's kind of what they have going on right now as far as acquisitions. The executives did say that they are being very aggressive on acquiring new companies and acquiring new drugs. They do not plan on merging with any big companies, so there won't be any sort of, Pfizer, Merck mergers or Bristol Myers Squibb mergers or anything like that. But they are very aggressive in acquiring new companies, even to the point that their credit takes a hit. And so that means that they're willing to spend their cash, they're willing to take on more debt than what they currently have in order to purchase new companies. That's really good to hear. However, if their credit rating does take a hit, that's definitely going to hurt some. Well, it may hurt the stock price. Let's say it that way. It may hurt the stock price if the credit rating takes a hit, because you have a lot of investors that not only invest in the stock, but they also invest in the corporation's bonds. And so if the bonds take a dip in price, maybe they get out of the bonds and go into the stock. Maybe they get out of both altogether. But it is really good to hear that they're being aggressive about going out and finding new drugs and new companies. All right. Think that's about it. They did beat their expectations, which also helped the stock price this past week. And I really see this happening again, especially if we get good news on November 30th for the COVID drug. But even without the COVID drug, I think that the new drugs that they have coming up, the Vaxnuvance and so forth, can really be a profitable thing for the company.